Influence is defined as the capacity to have an effect on the development, character, or behavior of something, someone, or the effect itself. From the golden age to the modern era, comic books have been shaped by titans, each leaving their artistic fingerprints on the genre and pushing it into new, unexplored territory. These cartoonists have made impacts so great that it influences the next generation after them. Artistic stylings being replicated, innovated, and inspired by. In the 1940s, we start with Jack Kirby, the godfather of all things superhero in comics, helping co-create the Marvel Universe alongside Stan Lee, shaping the imaginations and future of all comic creators to come after him. Kirby redefined visual storytelling with dynamic composition, psychedelic scenery, Kirby crackle, and power-packed pages. In the 1960s, we got Steve Ditko, the eerie, cerebral genius behind Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. His strange and surreal style brought introspection and mysticism to the pages. The 1970s brought us Neil Adams, the man who brought photorealism and social commentary to comics. His work on Batman and Green Lantern, Green Arrow injected humanity and relevance into superheroes. George Perez was also on the scene, helping create some of the best comics at DC Comics, as well as drawing up some amazing penciled pages and character ensemble comics, defining what a team comic book looked like. Adams, alongside others, fought to ensure that Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, the creators of Superman, received proper credit and financial compensation from DC Comics. His efforts were instrumental in achieving a 1975 agreement that provided Siegel and Shuster with credit and pensions. Adams also advocated for artists to get their artwork back and comic pages returned to them so they would be able to sell them and generate supplementary income. In the 1980s, we got Alan Moore and Frank Miller, the godfathers of the grime and grit. With Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns and Daredevil Reborn paved the way for mature cinematic storytelling. The Dark Knight Returns essentially saves Batman from obscurity, Batman at the time still having the campy stain from the Adam West TV show. Alan Moore brought us The Watchmen alongside Dave Gibbons and John Higgins, showing that superhero comics can handle more mature themes and are not just for children. The 1970s brought us Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, and Rob Liefeld, the Image Comics rock stars of the era. These creators started a visual revolution with exaggerated anatomy, wild details, and maximized splash page attitude, bringing in some of the craziest comic book sales records that still hold up today. All three of these creators brought much needed updates to fleeting Marvel characters, as well as showing up and coming artists that you don't need the big two companies to have hit comic books. They also created and founded Image Comics alongside a few of their other peers, a comic book company that allowed creators to retain rights to their creations and comics. Rob and Jim also had a great eye for talent as well, starting their own comic studios, Wildstorm and Extreme Studios, where they brought us some of the great young artists of the time like Jay Lee, J. Scott Campbell, Dan Fraga, and Brian Benjamin. In the 1990s, we also got Milestone Media, a comic company first of its kind, created by comic creators who wanted to see more characters that looked like themselves and told stories most closely related to their own personal experiences, an experience of those whose stories were often left untold. Some of these creators were the late great Dwayne McDuffie, Dennis Cowan, Michael Davis, Derek T. Dingle, and Christopher Priest. In the 2000s, we got Brian Hitch and Alex Ross, the age of realism and painterly spectacle. Hitch's ultimates inspired the MCU's tone. Ross's timeless, godlike heroes elevated comics to fine art. We also got the rise of big-time writers like Mark Millar and Robert Kirkman, who showed us that their smash hit comics could also be hits on TV and in the movie theaters, with their comics like The Walking Dead, Wanted, and Kick-Ass becoming hits. Now we arrive to today. As time has passed in the comic book industry, so has the mantle and names of the creators that influence the young up-and-coming comic book artists and writers. Recently, I was walking around HeroesCon 2025 doing many interviews with a few creators for my Instagram page. I asked them the same 3 questions, and one question was, who's your favorite comic book artist? And one name came up fairly often. So who's one of your favorite artists?
Daniel Warren Johnson.
Daniel Warren Johnson.
In modern comics right now, Daniel Warren Johnson.
Right now, the person who inspires me the most is Daniel Warren Johnson.
Daniel Warren Johnson, the new king of comics. Daniel Warren Johnson, born March 1987, is a comic book artist and writer based in Chicago. Originally from Massachusetts, Johnson stated that his first introduction to comic books was Bill Watterson's Calvin and Hobbes. He has explained that he had a sheltered childhood and wasn't allowed to read certain comics or watch certain cartoons as a child. Nothing with too much violence or suggestive things. So that's where the Sunday funnies come in. Going to his public library in Framingham, Massachusetts, where they didn't have comic books. The only kind of comics available for Johnson were comic strip collections like Far Side and Calvin and Hobbes. Thankfully, those comics inspired Daniel to start drawing. In first grade, Johnson would draw all kinds of things. One he noted a lot were the Power Rangers, believing these drawings would help him get a little more popular with the cool kids at school. By third grade, Daniel Warren Johnson started being homeschooled due to often being beat up at school. While being homeschooled, Daniel's parents would take him to the local art center where Johnson would start taking art classes. After going to these classes for a while, Johnson's art teacher Rosetta recognized his skills and told his parents to put him in more advanced classes like adult figure drawing. From middle school on, Daniel began getting privately trained by Rosetta. She taught Daniel the foundation of art. After high school, Johnson went to college in Chicago, where he got a degree in teaching art. Right after he graduated college, Daniel got a minimum wage job at a hospital as a patient transporter, rolling patients around on a gurney. Johnson did this for 2 years. During these 2 years, he wasn't drawing much, but he did little sketch portraits of patients in his sketchbook and then gave the sketches to the patients. Daniel ended up getting a job teaching middle school art, but quickly realized it wasn't for him. Johnson said that 1 year of teaching was one of the worst years of his life.
Middle school in Albany Park. And it's just like, I didn't have to do any work to get it. It's just like, someone's like, I'm leaving. Do you want the job? Because I'll put in a reference for you. I was like, well, okay. It was middle school art teaching position, and it was like the worst year of my life. And like my first day, a kid stabbed a girl in the head with a big mechanical pencil. And literally, there's like blood spurting, and I'm like calling security and like holding a paper towel to her head. Everybody's like, and then from then on, it was just downhill.
It was downhill from there.
I kept their art for them in these folders that had their names on them. And at the end of the year, I passed them back so they can have all their art projects to take home, because I grade everything. Everything's finished. Take your projects home. And all the kids, literally 95% of the kids took their art and they just threw it in the trash. It's the whole week, a whole week of that. Every single class getting up, taking their art and throwing it in the trash. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it anymore. I was like, I gotta try this. I gotta try doing things my own way. I gotta try and do my own stuff.
Daniel's wife, Rachel, recognized how miserable he was teaching and encouraged him to pursue a real art career. So Daniel and Rachel came up with an agreement. She would work full-time and he would do art full-time and only bringing money that came from his art. Daniel was able to scrape on by doing odd jobs like graphic design, illustration, freelance advertisement, and such. During that time, Daniel Warren Johnson was doing pages for his comic Space Mullet, which was a webcomic Johnson created, uploading 2 pages a week. Space Mullet is a sci-fi romp about a ragtag crew of misfits doing everything they can to get by in space. We follow ex-Space Marine trucker named Jonah and his alien co-pilot Alphys.
Space Mullet is a science fiction webcomic. Online graphic novel, whatever appeals to you the most, about a like washed up ex-Marine, like ex-Space Marine, and he's now like a trucker, and him and his alien co-pilot, they traverse the galaxy and run into trouble, I guess. It's kind of like Bad Boys meets like Calvin and Hobbes meets like Firefly.
You can see the bones of the artistic style Johnson would eventually evolve to in this comic. In the pages of Space Mullet, we get to see Daniel's love for drawing big, beautiful scenery and machinery. You can see some of his manga influences peering through with some of the character designs in this webcomic. Masamune Shirow's manga Appleseed comes to mind, Johnson being a really huge fan of Shirow's work. Daniel's first comic gig was on Eve, True Stories issue number 4 with writer Daniel Way, published through Darkhorse, which he got from his work on Space Mullet. You can see this on the pages of the single issue comic. Johnson's comic looks just like a lost chapter of Space Mullet. After Eve True Stories, Johnson got his next job to work on Ghost Fleet with Donny Cates, and then after he started working on a series called Alabaster. All these comics were through Darkhorse. Johnson was still working on Space Mullet and eventually finished up Space Mullet during this time working on these series. Though Johnson was grateful for the work he was receiving, he was fed up with working on other people's projects and wanted to start writing and drawing his own stories. Johnson has such a strong faith in his storytelling abilities that he turned down a chance to work on a Darth Vader series, to work on something that would change the trajectory of his comics career. Extremity. In 2015, Johnson pitched Extremity to Skybound at Emerald City Comic Con. Skybound accepted the comic and gave Johnson the necessary time to work on the series. Skybound wanted a good amount of the comic done before printing. This comic was the first published work where Johnson was not only the artist, but the writer as well. After a few years of writing and drawing Space Mullet, Johnson felt confident enough to do it again, but this time with a bigger publisher like Skybound. So on March 1st, 2017, Extremity issue number 1 hit the shelves. Extremity is a story of revenge, where we follow Thea, who is part of the Roto clan, the Roto clan being at violent odds with the Panza clan. Thea, our main character, was once an artist whose arm was cut off after being attacked by the Panza clan, her mother being killed as well during this attack. This 12-issue series really takes a look at what it means to take revenge, what it actually feels like, what are the proper responses to taking revenge, and so forth. Outside of the story, this comic has beautiful artwork. Daniel shows his masterful skills in drawing backgrounds. He also displays much how he puts impact on his action scenes, really packing a punch in his battles on his pages. This series is some of his best work. Extremity sold fairly well, with issue 1 getting a second print quickly after it came out. Johnson's work on Extremity got him a nomination for an Eisner for Best Limited Series. At one point, Extremity was optioned for a TV or movie adaptation, but nothing has came out of that option yet. Extremity was Daniel's first collaboration with longtime colorist Mike Spencer, who since Extremity has colored all of Daniel's comic book work. Skybound recently did a Kickstarter for a massive artist edition of Extremity, the full run of the comic. And I was able to get a copy of this behemoth art book. Look at this thing. Shit is huge. Speaking of Kickstarters, let's take a break and talk about today's sponsor, Flaming Stickers. If you need custom stickers for your brand, art, or business, they've got you covered. They've got a limited time deal to get 153-inch die-cut stickers of your own design for just $50. With free shipping anywhere in the United States. And it gets even better. These stickers are glossy coated, weatherproof, and will be shipped out within 24 hours. You'll get a 2 to 3 day delivery with tracking. Use promo code ROJOCOVA to get $10 off your first order. That's $40 for 150 stickers. Go hit flamingstickers.com and put your orders in today, or scan the QR code on the screen before this deal is gone. Flaming Stickers also did the stickers for my Kickstarter campaign for AWOL number 1, which is live right now. Click the link in the pinned comments or in the description of this video and go support the Kickstarter if you can. Halfway through Extremity, again at Emerald City Comic Con, Daniel pitched his next comic to Skybound. This comic was Murder Falcon. On October 10th, 2018, Murder Falcon number 1 hit the stands. The story of Murder Falcon follows the down and out Jake, who has seemingly lost everything he loves in his life. From playing guitar in his band to his girlfriend, things get even worse for Jake when his city starts to get attacked by monsters. Then things start to become better once Murder Falcon comes to help Jake not only save the city, but also get his life back together. This comic really shows the development of Johnson's writing chops. This story comes with a lot of heart, just like Extremity, as well as a great twist in this story that I won't spoil in this video, but go pick up a copy of this comic. There's also really great fight scenes in this comic. I love the designs of the monsters in this story. Murder Falcon is the first time we see Johnson create a comic about something that's an interest of his outside of comics. Things like playing guitar and metal music. Once Murder Falcon ended, Daniel started working for the big two, Marvel and DC Comics. In December 2019 to August 2020, Johnson put out Wonder Woman Dead Earth through DC Comics Black Label. DC Black Label is an imprint line of DC Comics consisting of original miniseries and reprints of books previously published under other imprints. The imprints intend to present traditional DC Universe characters for mature audiences. The Wonder Woman miniseries is an alternative universe tale starring Wonder Woman in a post-apocalyptic world where nightmarish monsters roam the earth. This series is probably one of my favorites from Johnson. I love this story. I love his take on Wonder Woman, how he makes her lore his own and runs with it. I also love that Wonder Woman uses Superman's skull and spine as a weapon. Holy shit, please go give this comic a read. Funny thing about this comic, when DC initially stepped to Johnson about doing a story for them, he kept pitching comics with C-list and D-list characters. The DC editorial wanted him to work on an A-list character. Johnson opted not to touch Batman or Superman and decided on Wonder Woman, saying in an interview with Jim Lee that Wonder Woman, I felt like there was something there, like you were saying with how Wonder Woman interacts with humanity and her perspective, and I felt like that was pretty unique and interesting as far as superheroes are concerned. I wanted to make her feel a little different, but still that core element of who she is. Next, Johnson jumped to Marvel to work on that C-list character story DC Comics didn't want from him, and that was his Beta Ray Bill miniseries, which ran from March to July 2021. This comic takes a different perspective on the character, where we follow Bill as he tries to find his humanity after he feels like he lost it once he was transformed into his horse-like champion form to protect his people. This comic is a really fun read, more dope fight scenes, double-page spreads, and machinery. By this comic, Johnson had become fully comfortable with his artistic style that we all know and love today. Now done venturing between the big two, Johnson wanted to return to making his own original creator-owned comics, leading to his next project, Do a Powerbomb. See, Johnson is a huge wrestling fan and wanted to make his own love letter to Japanese wrestling. Johnson surely did that with this series. He was able to bring high-flying, ring-slamming, dynamic action and drama of wrestling to the pages of this comic. I remember being floored by some of the artwork in this series. Some of the best stuff I've seen. The story in this comic is very good as well, with another great plot twist. This series ran from June 2022 to December 2022. Do a Powerbomb got Johnson his first Eisner in 2023 for a best publication for teens. Johnson has really shown his knack for writing comics based on hobbies or interests outside of comics. Like I stated earlier, first it was playing music and playing guitar that was a major aspect in Murder Falcon, and then his love for Japanese wrestling that made way for the creation of Do a Powerbomb. This next interest of Johnson's led to making him a household name in the comic book industry. Transformers. After IDW Publishing lost the license to produce Transformers and G.I. Joe comics by the end of 2022, Hasbro announced in June 2023 that Skybound Entertainment would acquire those licenses. During San Diego Comic-Con 2023, it was revealed that Skybound had plans to reprint both Marvel and IDW comics based on Transformers. These reprints were kickstarted and made a boatload of cash on the platform. Skybound tapped Daniel to write and draw the newly acquired Transformers comic. The editors of Skybound knew Johnson was a huge fan of the franchise and wanted to give him a chance to produce the comic. Daniel took this opportunity and made one of the best-selling Transformers comics in its publication history. As of this recording, Transformers issue number 1 has over 10 reprints. Not only did the first issue have multiple reprints, so does literally every single comic after has at least 1 to 2 reprints. Issue number 1 was the best-selling comic of that year. Daniel wrote and drew the first 6 issues, and after that, George Corona picked up the drawing duties. This team will continue to work on the series until issue 24. Robert Kirkman and Dan Fraga have been announced to take up the Transformers duties starting with issue 25. Johnson's Transformers is part of the Energon universe, which is an ongoing shared fictional universe created and overseen by Robert Kirkman. Johnson really turned Transformers around and made the comic amazing, bringing in a much needed breath of fresh air with his amazing artwork along with great storytelling, dope and dynamic fight scenes. He even snuck in some wrestling moves in some of the battles. I guess all of those years of collecting Transformers toys really paid off for Johnson. Transformers has really taken Johnson's popularity to a whole nother level. As he was working on Transformers, Johnson still kept his hands in making his own original comics. His latest original comic at the time of recording is The Moon is Following Us, where he wrote and actually shared art duties with another artist, O'Reilly Rosmos. This comic is a slow burn story about a married couple doing whatever it takes to get their comatose daughter back. It's a very interesting and unique story with, again, fantastic artwork from both artists. It's very interesting to see how they delineate the art duties within this comic. The final thing I need to mention are Daniel's mini comics that are cult classic hits. His bootleg fan comics like his Star Wars, Green Leader, and his Old Man Skywalker are both fantastic mini comics with amazing artwork. He has other comics like Thank You Liger, which is a thank you comic to one of his favorite wrestlers who retired. These comics have become rarities that he would give away at comic book conventions for free at his table. If you're able to come across one of these comics, I would highly recommend to pick them up ASAP. All the work Daniel put in really paid off, not only in him creating amazing comics, becoming financially stable, but also with influencing the next generation. As an up-and-coming comic book artist and creator, I personally find myself drawn to his lines, from the way he inks his speed lines and his sound effects, the way he puts so much energy in his fight scenes, but also has the ability to hit emotional story beats on his pages seamlessly. The fact that Johnson was and still is determined to not only draw but write his own comics really inspires me. Something I am also solely interested in as well. A feat that is very rare in American mainstream comics. I know I'm not the only one who takes influence from his work. Many of my peers that I've talked to study his craftsmanship just as I do.
Daniel Warren Johnson? What's your favorite?
Just the energy, man. You know, he makes it look so fun, easy, you know, and he's just a great guy all around. Great books.
Daniel Warren Johnson's been a big, influence, but just got me back into comics in general. So that's a big part of it.
Not just because of what an amazing artist and storyteller is, and how many years I've followed him and how generous he is with his time sharing, like Friday with D-Dubs, he streams every Friday, but also just because of how much he's gone out of his way to support me and support other independent artists and sort of pass the torch.
Lastly, the best thing about Dan is his humbleness. I've had the pleasure of meeting him twice at HeroesCon 2024 and 2025. I showed him my work both years, and even though his line was long, he still took the time to give me some critiques and advice.
Nobody's safe. Check me out. There we go. This is what I'm talking about. We'll get to that in a second. Nobody's safe. So this guy's got some attitude. This is Kova's Lookout. He's in the chat. Look at this. Hands stapled. I love it. We got that passion. We got that fire. Great drop kick. Love it. Love this energy. And I told him when he came, he's like, hey, what do you think? And I'm like, this is awesome. This is really cool. Look at that hand. It's so good. What are you doing to me? What is with this background? No way, bro. Get out of here. You're better than this. You're too good of an artist to have these computer backgrounds. Get out of here. I called him out. And the only reason I would ever call somebody out like this is because I believe that their lines have the capability to, keep going, my man. Keep going.
The crazy thing is, Dan hated teaching, but if you look around now, he's actually teaching a whole new generation of comic book artists. So my Kickstarter is live right now, and if you can, go support the campaign. I would highly appreciate it. It's going to be running till August 10th. I have a lot of great stuff on there. I was able to get a bunch of cool variant covers for this comic from a bunch of my artist friends. I have a lot of great rewards, add-ons, and so forth on the campaign. Again, I would really, really appreciate if you guys were able to go check it out. Pick up issue of the comic. You know, AWOL is a comic that I've been working on for the last couple of months. I put a lot of hard work and dedication to this comic, and it is some of the best work that I've put out to this date. I think you guys will really enjoy it. So if you can, click the link on the pinned comment of this video and go check it out. So back to Daniel. Daniel Warren Johnson has been one of my favorite artists since I've gotten back into making comics. I discovered him on a video on YouTube. I think it was like Comic Tropes or something like that. He was talking about his artwork, and then he did an interview with him, and I just started reading some of his stuff. I think the first book I read was Wonder Woman Dead Earth, which I really was just amazed by. And after that, Murder Falcon, and then Do a Powerbomb was just coming out. By the time I started, finding out who he was, so I picked up pretty much the whole full run of that, and then I've been following him since. He is just honestly just a phenomenal artist, a great writer, and he is a real inspiration to like the next generation. A lot of people I talk to, a lot of people that I follow on Instagram always cite him as a source of inspiration. So I just wanted to make this video because he's he's awesome. He had my comic on his live stream, because he does these live streams every Fridays, Friday with D-Dubs, and whenever he goes to conventions and people give him like gifts or art or their comics, he always shows them off, which I think is really awesome. He did a lot of cool things. Again, like I said in the video, he will sit there and he will talk to you in his line. Sometimes he won't even charge you for signatures. I've seen him do that. He's done it with me a few times. All around just a great guy. And it's funny because I remember when I was at HeroCon at 2024, I was waiting his line. It was, it was relatively long. And I remember the people I was talking to in line were saying, last year, 2023 and before that, his line was, super short because he wasn't as popular. And Transformers had, I think, just came out or was just announced. And then this year, his line was super duper long. I waited probably like 2 hours just to get my book signed. But it was, it was worth it because obviously he's my favorite artist. I showed him my portfolio. He remembered me from, the last year and stuff like that. So it was really cool, So, if you haven't checked out Daniel's work, I would highly recommend it. Great artist. Go check out his YouTube channel where you can see him drawing a bunch of pages from his comics. He has videos where he breaks down his processes on like how he makes comics and his writing process and thought processes on doing stuff. So if you really want to dive deep in everything DWJ, I would go check out his channel. I appreciate you guys watching this video to the end. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Check out my Patreon for some exclusive content. Also, like I said earlier, go check out my Kickstarter if you can. I would really appreciate it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.